Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Creation Myths. I am here tonight with Mark Reid because,
Hello.
oh my goodness, we are going over quite the debate, folks. It is linked
Mm.
down below. Now, before we go any further, let me just take a minute for YouTube to catch up to StreamYard, make sure that everything looks and sounds okay. Chat, as always, it is your job to make sure everything is fine. So we are going to keep going. So before we go any further at all, Mark, welcome
Yeah,
back. I think this is second or third time you've been here. So
I can't remember. Yeah.
it's we've talked on various channels at
Yeah,
various times. So
absolutely. Yeah.
thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to
Oh,
have
my
you
pleasure.
and to go over this very interesting debate. But before we do
Mm.
that, tell everybody about you and your channel, which I will say is linked below, and everybody should subscribe to it.
Yeah, I'm just a random ADHD, ASD atheist, and I do debates and I talk about fundamentalist ideas. My major focuses are sort of the philosophical side. I really enjoy talking about that logic and meaning and things like that. Morality is one of my favorite topics, but I also do, against debate, just fun debates against flat earthers and these creationist people. And I found that, I do have a propensity for debate. I do enjoy it, which is really fun. And, some of these turn out to be absolutely wacky, which always amuses me. So yeah, I basically, it's just one person's trip through this weird YouTube space, which, we're all sort of learning and getting to grips with. But thank you. Yeah, that's basically what I do. And I like to have conversations and debates and, do shows and yeah, have fun time.
Well, I appreciate what you do. I think you do really interesting stuff, and especially I appreciate knowing somebody
Oh,
who
thank
can
you.
kind of talk about the philosophy stuff without using all the jargon because I don't know any philosophy at all. And it just goes, despite many philosophy classes as an undergrad, I think, one class away from a minor, but it was like this
Right.
weird patchwork. So it was like there
Mhm.
was no formal like point to it all. I was just like taking classes that I thought were interesting.
Right.
So when it comes to all the philosophy stuff that people get into with this, I don't know it, but I can watch you talk about it, and then it makes sense to me because I can follow it, which is really nice.
Well, my background's really weird because I came from sort of a technical side of things. My background is in networks, computer networks, so networking computers, integrated circuits, things like that. But I worked for a long time on sort of technical support, like so telling people on the phone how to fix their internet connections and things like that, like to investigate. So
Yeah,
explaining very technical things in simple
but
language is
very
kind of
yeah.
what I used to do. And I do love, and I mentioned this the other day, I love that universities are now sort of they're gearing towards, well, if the ordinary people can't understand the science, we're not doing it right. Like we've got to be
Yep.
able to explain it to ordinary people in order, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that choose the government or vote on things or choose what happens. So we've got to be able to explain it. So I love that science communication is being focused, and people like you, I mean, I don't I try to tune into your channel to understand, what's going on with the, chromosome fusion and ERVs and all of this stuff, because, it's very hard to understand. It's almost impossible to pick up a paper and go, okay, well, now I'm going to understand
Oh yeah.
substitution rate versus, mutation rate. I'm just going to pick it up and understand. It's very difficult. So I love that people like you are out there, and Erica, another person, I'm reviewing her at the moment, just fantastic communicators. And unfortunately, not all scientists are like that. So we've got to encourage scientists to be able to communicate their work in a way that's understandable to everyday people, and that's difficult. Like I cannot understate how difficult it is. So, I really appreciate that your channel's out there, or I would just get killed in these debates.
Well,
Your
so
channel,
let's
Erica's, all of these people, they're fantastic.
So perfect lead in. This debate. So before I
Mm.
pull up the debate, what I've done for us here is this debate with the Q&A ended up going over 3 hours. So what I did is I've clipped out just
Oh yeah.
the intros and rebuttals is what I've got, which is like the first
Mm.
hour and change here.
Yep. Yep.
And
Fantastic.
so what we're going to do, folks, is first I'm going to throw it back to Mark for just a minute. Mark, I'm going to have you just like give us the background on this debate. What was the topic? What was kind of agreed upon, if there was kind of a scope or anything like that,
Mm.
and then we can go from there. But let's just set this up before we get into anything specific here.
Right. So Donnie contacts me with debates, and he kind of, I mean, Donnie's a bit of a weird one. We've all know Donnie. He's likable, yet says stuff that is totally wrong. I dread to think, and the temerity to put out a book on something that he knows so little about is just hilarious. Yeah, it is funny, but he'll come to a debate, and the topic was so weird for this one, but at the time I hadn't had a debate on Donnie channel for ages. He kind of calls me the final boss on there because I generally do very well against the creationist types. I'm very good at pointing out flaws in their methodology and things like that. So but he comes through and he says he has this guy, but the topic, I want to really stress how weird the topic was. It wasn't like evolution versus creationism. It wasn't evolution, is it real? It wasn't evidence for it. It was evolution and creationism. What is the proper perspective on the past? So it was very esoteric kind of thing. This it could be interpreted in so many different ways. And I love it when they include creationism, because then I can kind of, we all know people like the very famous example is Kent Hovind, who will not touch creationism with a 10-foot barge pole. He will argue evolution. He will not go anywhere near creationism because, I mean, it's just a non-starter. It's just well, this is what my book says, and that's about it. That's the entire argument for it. So this one, I liked that creationism was in it. I didn't like how weird it was, but I accepted it because at least I could talk about creationism and the just incredible lack of any kind of evidence or argument that has any merit in this sphere. So that's why I took it. But such a weird, like, what's the proper perspective of the past? It's a weird one, but
it sounds to me, you watch those old debates, and I should say I've watched these old debates because I'm
right.
weird. But you watch like these old debates, like literally at Oxford University or on like
Correct.
the
Yeah.
old show Firing Line, where the premise of the debate is this very oddly worded statement, right? And it's very formal, pro and con, and there was a very famous one
Right.
of these that had like Ken Miller and Michael Behe and David Berlinski on, and the topic
Mm.
was something like evolution needs to take note of intelligent designers. Like, it was this very oddly worded thing, and it strikes me as in that kind of
Well,
school, that approach is weird.
yes, it's trying to, but the thing about those old debates, it's always a proposition. It's always
Mhm.
a statement, right? And this one was a question, which, in
Yeah,
formal debate, you wouldn't have a
you can't
question.
have a
You would have
question.
right. You have a proposition, a statement of some sort of, fact kind of thing, like, evolution is the correct perspective on the
Right.
past, and then so it sort of tried to do one of those titles and failed miserably because it got it wrong.
I will say that's not the first time that's happened on Standing for
Oh,
Truth, where he's
oh,
tried to do this, but he's formulated it as a question. So then there's
right.
no clear pro or con. There's no clear
Hmm.
affirmative in terms of like who starts, who responds.
Right.
The structure doesn't work because of the
Hmm.
way he sets, and he's done this repeatedly. And I know people have pointed this out, and like,
Yeah.
here we are, how many years, and same
Oh,
old.
look, I prefer the formal debates. They're really clear in the settings. They really are structured in a way that people can, really make cases. But at the end of the day, this is YouTube, and I'm
Yeah.
really nobody. So
But I think
it's fine.
But I think you raised a really interesting point there in terms of the topic, which is so many times, and especially when it's Kent Hovind and lots of other
Mm,
creationists kind of do hit like follow the same approach, is whatever topic they're going to agree to is going to basically be attacking evolution, putting evolution on the
yep.
defensive. And the way this was structured, it flips that a little bit and allows you to go on offense against
Yes.
creationism and critically examine their models, right?
Mhm.
Rather than,
Yep.
is evolution real? Does macroevolution happen? Is there evidence for, right? It's always putting the onus on evolution to do the
Right.
work. For this one, the creationist has to defend their side of things, right? So
Correct.
that's
Yeah.
a really interesting kind of, I didn't catch that initially. So thank you for pointing that out. That's a really important setup for all
It
this.
it's one of the reasons why I took it, and because when it's like creation versus evolution, it sounds it sounds like they are not in the same playing field, right? They're not even
Right.
comparable as hypotheses for a the Earth or life or any of these things. They're not even in the same ballpark. But what it allows you to do is put them side by side, because they keep saying, well, why is ours not science and yours is? And there is an answer for that, and
There is a
that's what I
very good answer for that.
right, and that's what I tried to do in this debate, was point out why evolution is science and creationism is religion. Like, exactly why. And
Yeah.
part of it is because in science, and I really wanted to sort of mention this, is that there is a demarcation problem, right? There's a problem where there are certain sciences that sort of are a bit on the fringe. Like you mentioned, sociology and anthropology and stuff. They're sciences, but they're kind of, because they use statistics, like psychology, they're not what we call hard science. But I want to be perfectly clear: evolutionary biology is not one of these on the fringe, right?
No.
And then you get ones that are really on the fringe, like say supplements and things, vitamins and things like that.
Yeah.
Have a whole industry which is
Oh, yeah.
kind of really sitting on that fringe of science. But creationism is not on the fringe. It is solidly in pseudoscience, and evolution is solidly in real science. Like, it is not even close. And to be able to point that out, I saw as a real opportunity.
Yeah.
Why is one science and the other one not? And I saw it as an opportunity to do so. So that's why I took it. Little did I know the wackiness that I was getting into.
Yeah. So that's the setup for the debate. That's the topic. And
Yep.
the way we're going to do this, folks, is I've got a video here ready to go that's just opening arguments and rebuttals. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the whole debate is linked down below. And if you want to watch Mark's opening and his rebuttal section, I highly recommend you do that, because I think he did an excellent job. And I will note that you don't have to take it from me, because PZ Myers had thoughts on this debate, and he said that Mark did a good job. So take it from PZ Myers. Mark did a good job.
I'm always open to criticism, especially by people in the field. Like, I'm not in the field. I have to listen to those people who are in the field and doing the actual work, and making this information available. I'm just a guy at the end of the day who's good at talking, good at arguing, and doing debate. And look, I was more bullied into this by a friend of mine who said, "You do really good in debates. You should do this, online.
There you
Make
go.
a channel." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't really want to. Not really interested. I just enjoy debating." And he said, "No, you've got to make it." I was bullied into it. All right, I was
And
absolutely bullied into it.
and look at all the wonderful experiences you've gotten to have.
It's been so weird, wacky, fulfilling, great communities, coupled with some throwing off the veil on the absolute void. It's been an absolute roller coaster ride, and that's life, really. It's ups and downs. So, but on the whole, I've had a fantastic experience. I've met some amazing people. Like the community around me. Ember's wonderful. I've met you. I've met Erica. Well, I haven't met Erica really yet, but I've been talking to people. Andrew Cummings in the chat, and I've talked to him a lot. Awesome
Andrew.
people out there. Yeah, I just fantastic.
No, it's
people.
great. It really is a great community. This kind of extended circle that we have is really fantastic people,
Yep.
and I appreciate all of you. Thank you all for being here. So we're not going to watch your stuff, because we're going to watch Brian's stuff.
Yeah, it's the much funnier stuff. Yeah,
it's so, folks, you may if you are watching this live, hello everyone. Please note that pinned at the top of the chat is a link to the Creationist bingo cards, and I highly recommend, if you are here, now is the time to grab a bingo card, because I'm going to pull up Brian's opening, And it's only, I think there were 12 minutes. I think it was 12-minute openings and like 8 or 10-minute
Yes. Yep.
rebuttals. They're not long, which is good. I like it when it's short and then just more open conversation, which is really good. And I will say, we're not going to get to the open conversation unless we want to be here for like 4 hours, probably. But the open conversation was bonkers in its own right. It was completely bananas. So, man, what a debate this was. So let's start with Brian's opening arguments here. Now, everyone, keep in mind the topic of the debate, and the thing that I want everyone to just be thinking about as we're watching this is that there is no attempt to reference the stated topic, to defend like creationism and its ability to explain the past. There's not even an attempt to make any kind of coherent argument. It's just a greatest hits album of every creationist headline you could think of from the last 20 or 30 years. That's all it is. And just follow along with us. We'll see how many we can get. It's incredible. It's like he just memorized like answers in Genesis and is one article at a time, just regurgitating it. It's incredible. So let me pull this up. It always starts playing as soon as you pull it up. So I apologize, everyone. I'll have to pause it real fast here. Okay. So let's go to, first was Mark's opening, I think.
Have a look at his acquainted.
Yeah, I think I did go first.
Just those.
Yeah. What?
Yes, that was yours.
Not provide that. This is genetics in the box.
Thank you very much.
Oh, here we go.
For that first opening statement.
I didn't notice this at the time, so I've been listening to this, but I haven't had the visuals, and I wasn't watching it the first time when this was live. I didn't notice that he used the virtual cam to put "Jesus died for you" as his picture while you were doing your opening. That is both technically savvy and a hilarious use of the technology.
Well, I'm not so sure. I think it might just be the automatic because we were in streaming.
Oh,
I think it just might be his automatic picture. So if I turn my camera off, it should.
Oh, never mind.
So it just shows my logo there. So
never mind.
I was not as technical savvy as you first thought.
I was giving him more credit. I thought he was like, I'm gonna put a rebuttal on screen because see, I've done this in like open mics. If like somebody is, Sam or Kent is just blathering away, then I'll pull up PowerPoint on the virtual cam and I'll just start writing out responses while they're talking.
Well, one of the conditions, and I saw a debate with him and, I can't even remember who it was. It might have been Planet Peterson. He is basically one of the types that puts up slides rebutting you as you're speaking. And it's one of the things that I said, yeah, I wouldn't. And he does a lot of, or used to in other debates, has done a lot of playing videos. Like his opening was just playing a video. And I basically said to Donnie, like, no, I'm sorry, I can't have that because A, the audience hates it, that you're not actually engaging with them. And B, it can be copyright. So, there's a bit of impetus for Donnie to, and he basically agreed to these conditions. So, hey, I will say one thing, at least, unlike Kent Hovind, he agreed to conditions and then actually did what he agreed to.
Well, sort of. He did have videos in here where he took little snippets of that Discovery Institute, look how complex the cell is video. He did have some of those in here.
Well, we said keep it to a minimum, and I think he did that. I will say, we said, hey, only if like you need to prove a point or it's absolutely essential. And fair call, he did keep it to a minimum. So I think he did keep his word, which is good to see, considering like with Hovind, you'll make a deal with him and then he'll just completely break it. Yeah, just out the window as soon as you start. So yeah.
Okay. So now that we've talked about that, let's get to Brian's opening here.
Sure. Sorry.
Of tonight's Great Origins Debate Showdown. Timer and hand it over to you.
All right, here we go.
For 12 minutes. Whenever you're ready, please let me know. If you need me to share your screen, I can do that as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Donnie, for lining this up. And
actually, you know what? Mark, maybe because I looked and I couldn't find them. So I know that Brian is associated, I think it was the Twin Cities, whatever creationist organization that is, the TS, whatever it is. But do you know any, like his background, his credentials, anything? I couldn't find anything. I looked.
I don't think he has anything. I think I did look it up, but he doesn't really have anything of note. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I think it's more on sort of a management side of things. You know, a lot of these people, they come through with degrees or doctorates, but they're in something like management or things like that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, not anything to do with science whatsoever. And look, I mean, I would say that I don't have anything to do with science either. You know, like I'm not a scientist, but I don't. You know, that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. You know,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
couldn't.
think
I was
it
just
really
wondering if
has
you
any.
knew because I did not. And I tried. I couldn't find anything. So, okay.
Right.
All right. Back to it.
Thank you, Mark, for participating. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. And hopefully when it's all done, you can see information on both sides of the topic and other sources where you can go get more information. Because like I said before, I want people to get all the information to make informed decisions. And that's not happening in our schools, in our media, in our museums. So I'm giving everybody an opportunity to think, because if you only see one side of the issue, you just memorize. And you can go ahead and share that for me if you would.
All right. So
The irony, if you only see one side, yeah, the irony.
yeah, and the whole like in the schools and the thing, and it's
Yeah.
just this victim complex of guys.
Mhm.
All you have to do is real science. Like if
Yes.
all you have to do is like do the scientific method and like give us the goods, you know, and they just can't do it. They want to, you know, you journals and conferences and this, and then you get into
Yeah.
the schools at the end.
No, that's not how it works.
Jump right to the, yeah.
Right, and look, religion is in schools. It's just in theology class where it belongs. You know, it's just science covers methodological naturalism. It is looking around, looking at the natural world, and basing conclusions upon that. I'm really sorry that that's what it is, but you can have it in schools. It just won't be in science classrooms.
And if you got a problem with methodological naturalism, just give us a way to measure whatever it is you're saying the
Right.
explanation is, and then congratulations, it's in bounds.
Right.
Just give us
And
a
then we can-
quantifiable way
yeah.
to measure it.
Oh, you may want to turn it up to 1.25 as well. It just cuts down on the time, and it's still perfectly understandable. Just
I don't know how to do that.
creationists have a habit of talking a bit slow.
They do.
Are you doing it straight from YouTube?
No, I'm doing it on StreamYard. I put the video on StreamYard. You can share a video file directly.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I'm not sure how to do that then. Never
It's
mind.
easier. I think it's easier than YouTube. This is behind the scenes, everybody. I think it's easier than YouTube because sometimes like the point A to point B to point C, it doesn't like that sometimes, but you just give it the file directly. But I don't think you can change the speed. But yes,
I
just
play it in a player and then share it to StreamYard.
Oh, you could play it in a player too. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I didn't set that up. So sorry, everybody.
No, that's fine. No, that's cool. That's cool.
While we're here, we'll say for $2 from Meat Permits Tad, why do all creationists have the same cadence? That is a really interesting question. That's actually a really interesting observation. And I think part of it, at least for a bunch of them, is that they're all imitating Dwayne Gish. Like if you watch Dwayne Gish, you'll immediately clock that Kent Hovind is imitating Dwayne Gish. I think that's a lot.
I have another hypothesis, and it's because so many of them have a background in preaching, and that's where they've come from.
Yep.
They generally will preach, and you'll notice this, and especially this debate towards the end. And every time creationists get into trouble and feel like their back's against a wall, they go into preacher mode and start to go, well, your soul is in danger, and you wouldn't want to go to hell, would you? And they sort of have this default mode of, well, let's just preach at them and do a sermon. So I think that because of their background, a lot is in sermons and preaching, they will have this cadence, and it's designed to sort of tweak those little emotional strings, that
it is.
Oh, you wouldn't want to go to hell now, would you? And that's sort of their go-to whenever they get into real trouble.
The other one that I think is kind of a weird one, but it struck me. So the documentary series Shiny Happy People season 2 just came out. Season 1 was about the Duggar family, and I rewatched season 1 in preparation for season 2 because there's some overlap there. So I wanted to go back and rewatch season 1, which was really interesting, and I think everybody should watch it because that is like that kind of thinking is like in charge in the United States right now. So like you should watch Shiny Happy People, see both seasons. But what you see a lot is that the adult men in that kind of religious tradition, community, whatever you want to call it, will speak similar to the way that Brian is speaking in this debate. And it's this very slow, very deliberate, kind of talking down to you a little bit. Like, and it's kind of the way, who's the dad in the Duggars? Jim Bob. It's kind of the way Jim Bob talks like to his kids, kind of. So it's very slow, like kind of, if you watch it, put them side by side, you'll notice some similarities there. I think that's part of it too. And it all comes from that same kind of background. Yeah. We got, while we were chatting, Left-Handed Jedi for $2. My toast has Jesus on both sides. If anyone's familiar with the toast with Jesus in it, Left-Handed Jedi has one-upped the Jesus toast. Okay, back to Brian.
Nice.
And we need to make some definitions. And according to the National Academy of Sciences, the National Academy of Sciences defines science as the use of evidence to construct testable explanations and predictions of natural phenomena, as well as the knowledge generated through this process. So notice the key word, it's testable.
I love
this
isn't
testable,
a definition.
According to
this isn't a definition. You can see it's a question in a like a quiz or something, pop quiz. Can you rewrite this definition in your own words using familiar terms: hypothesis, theory, experiment, observation, and prediction? Be sure to describe the limitations of science as well, which obviously he didn't do, because God is obviously a limitation of science. Like, we can't do the unfalsifiable. And that was, if you saw the debate, that was my entire presentation, was based around, we can't investigate the unfalsifiable, which creation science falls squarely in the unfalsifiable.
Good catch. I didn't even notice that was like a good catch. Yes.
the National Academy of Sciences, it's not science. And I'm paying for this textbook with my property tax, so I'm going to use this definition. I'm also paying for this, evolution. All life on Earth is related to a common ancestor that existed.
I just want to point out that because what they're doing and what he's missed in this and what they're doing is they're basically going, well, don't just get a definition of science. You have to understand what it is. So rewrite it in your own words using these terms that are included in science, things like testing, hypothesis, all of the things we're familiar with. But it's so to make sure students don't just get a definition and go, well, that is the definition. It's to understand what it is. So he's missing the point that we don't just say, hey, this is what it is. We say students have to understand what it is.
Mark, the creationist missed the point?
Apparently so.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Is that on the bingo card?
It should be. That should be. Completely missing the point. That should be on the. I'll add that. That should be on there. This is a useful comment here, I think, from Darren Simmons. Conspiracy theorizing right off the bloody bat. Yeah, exactly. Right away, it's not about the merits of anything. It's big science is keeping creationism down right away. Yeah.
Yep.
Before there's even an attempt to make any kind of argument, it's right to victimhood. Yeah.
About 3.8 billion years ago, this process is called evolution. So when I say evolution, I'm not talking about big beaks or little beaks or changes in the genome. I'm talking about all of the plants and animals and people that have ever lived coming from a single living cell, a common ancestor. And we need to separate the facts from the conclusion. This is from a science college textbooks that I bought.
I just want to point out before we go any further into this, the point of this debate, the question was something, I forget the exact wording, but it was something along the lines of what better explains the past, evolution or creation or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Would you know what the topic is from any of this?
No, absolutely not.
No idea. There's no connection to the topic. There's no attempt to connect to the topic of the debate to build any kind of argument around that topic, around that question, and that is extremely typical. You see this with Brian Lauer, apparently, Ken Hovind, very famously, Dwayne Gish, Jerry Bergman. I was listening to an interview just yesterday with William Dembski, the intelligent design specified complexity guy. His shtick has not changed in 30 years. He's been doing the same thing since like 1996, 1997, almost word for word. It doesn't matter what the forum is, what the topic is. It's just each person has their thing and they're just going to say their thing. And it doesn't matter what the question was. And Jason Ross for $2. Thank you, Jason. Missed the point. Should be the free space.
That's true. That's 100% true.
Good
Yeah.
point. That is a
Yep.
great point. Yeah.
It says a fact is a verifiable piece of information, whereas a conclusion is a judgment based upon the facts. Okay, so a fact is verifiable. Okay, tonight we got the same facts. What we're discussing is the conclusion, the interpretation of the facts.
Same facts, different conclusion is definitely on the bingo card. That's definitely on the list. Somebody has that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting into it now. Any comments on this same facts, different conclusion?
Yeah, but it's important that it's the conclusion isn't the methodology of how you got to the conclusion is just as important as the conclusion itself. You know, it's easy to make these very, very sort of knee-jerk sort of, you know, conclusions, but how you got there is a reason why in papers we have a methodology section. It's not just the conclusion you've made.
Excellent.
We have to be very careful about separating those. And then this next statement, it's the ultimate pot calling the kettle black. The news media, often mix facts with conclusions without indicating which is which. Well, so does the science book, and so does the science journals, giant science journals, and so does this national park website. Notice at the bottom it says the park is dominated.
Well, before we get to this Grand Canyon thing, let's just stick to what the point that Mark just brought up about the structure of scientific papers. They literally have different sections for facts and conclusions, right? You have the results section, which is here's the direct observations we made. And then you have the discussion section, which is here are the conclusions we're drawing from the data. It's literally in separate sections that are designed for two different purposes.
And that's exactly why they're written that way.
Folks, it's difficult to convey the degree to which he is 180 degrees from the truth here. Again, scientific papers have two separate sections in which, in his parlance, you separate facts from conclusions.
Yeah. Well, I've often said that apologetics is the opposite of science. Like, it's the exact dynamic opposite. So in science, we see observations and then find the conclusions from what we observe. In apologetics, it is literally you've got the conclusion and see how you can fit everything to the conclusion.
Yeah.
It's the exact opposite. So it's not surprising that he sort of finds it difficult to wrap his head around the idea that what we're doing is saying, hey, this is what we observe and here's what we can draw from it, because his thing works. He wants to make both of them the same, and they're just not. They never will be. Their base methodology is exactly opposites of one another.
Exactly. We're as Left-Handed Jedi says, they're reverse engineering the answer, right? And you see this from, Ken Ham, right? That's his whole thing is you have to start with Genesis 1 through 11. And then every conclusion you draw has to flow from that. And, that's why organizations like Answers in Genesis have a statement of faith.
Yeah.
Starts from Genesis 1 through 11, and then nothing can violate that, right? And everything has to be in the service of supporting that. And I'm always disappointed, and I should know by now, like Mark, I should know by now. I should never be disappointed by creationists. At this point, I should know. But to see somebody just like, and this is the third time I'm hearing this intro, and this is the first time I caught that problem. That he's like, wait a minute, that's literally the structure of scientific papers, is the thing that he says science doesn't do.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm always disappointed. It's always worse than I think. Somehow. After all these years, I'm not cynical enough.
Look, you've got to lower your expectations, which is wild because your expectations are basement level already.
How is that
to the Earth's core?
How is that? I've read Kent Hovind's dissertation cover to cover. I don't know how my expectations can get lower, but they're still too high.
Here we are.
By the spectacular Grand Canyon, a twisting 1 mile deep and 277 mile long gorge. Okay, that's verifiable, so that's a fact. And then they throw the conclusion in with it. This is an interpretation based upon the fact, but it's not a fact. It says formed during some 6 million years of geologic activity and erosion by the Colorado River. Okay, so that's not verifiable. That's not testable. Okay, so that's a conclusion, and they mixed it with the facts. So that's what we're going to have to get good at tonight. And even NOVA does it. Paleobiologist Mary Schweitzer has defied the.
Let's just close the book on the Grand Canyon. It is testable because you can observe erosion rates, like water flow rates and erosion. Like you can directly observe those things.
And actually, a geologist friend of mine said there's a really easy thing, which is switchbacks. It's where the river sort of turns 180 degrees, basically, and comes back the other way in a very, very sort of tight loop. And the Grand Canyon is emblematic for these kind of switchbacks.
Oh, yeah.
And that underfoot, like what they're describing was that there was over force from the flood. It can't do that. Like just simple water dynamics. It can't do that.
Yeah. It's very simple to show that a global catastrophic flood sufficiently deep to cover the entire surface of the world, including all the mountains, it could not dig out a canyon like the Grand Canyon. It just couldn't do it.
Right.
For many reasons, and switchbacks is one I hadn't heard, and that's so cool. But yeah, obviously a flood isn't going to do this as it flows because it's a
correct. Yep.
All right. And now we're getting into the soft tissue part of the presentation, folks. Again, remember, the question is creation or evolution better explain history or whatever the word was.
Which is the correct perspective on the past.
Right.
So it's kind of tangential, but not actually addressing the topic.
And also this is the way he describes this is extremely wrong. So anyone who's got any soft tissue related things on your bingo card, congratulations.
Long-held belief that it's
Schweitzer put a objection to her things being used for young Earth creation of purpose. She put a disclaimer on her page. She's talked about it. It is dead in the water. It shows that our understanding of fossilization of soft tissue it is a lot more nuanced than what we first thought, but it doesn't show young Earth. It just doesn't. So I feel sorry for her because she has done this amazing work. And, I sort of compare her to the new Stephen Jay Gould, who's been misappropriated by young Earth creationists forever. He's a very prominent paleontologist, and she seems to be the next one. And it must be frustrating for her.
Yep. Especially when they just lie about what she found. They go from signs of this and remnants of that to they found literal red blood cells in blood vessels. It's like, no, they didn't. But
It is fruitless to search for preserved soft tissue in dinosaur remains. Most experts thought that such structures would have decayed and vanished long ago, and rightfully so, because that's what all their scientific experiments show. But Schweitzer has found evidence of delicate structures such as blood vessels and red blood cells. Now, that's a fact. That's verifiable. We can see that. And then they throw their conclusion in. The blood cells that have survived for millions of years. Okay, that's not a fact. That's a judgment. They could have just as well thrown my judgment in there. The blood vessels and red blood cells, that indicates that dinosaurs did not live millions of years ago. So what you're going to see tonight is we have the same facts. It's just,
Let's just pause on this for a second. So I want to direct everybody to Dr. Joel Duff's channel, friend of this channel. I love Joel's work and appreciate what he does. And he has a series on his channel called the Hemoglobin Challenge, which is all about creationists getting this soft tissue stuff wrong, where they just go out of their way to overinflate what has been found, right? It's they found intact collagen. No, they found some degradation products that are the remnants of collagen. They didn't actually find collagen. They found flexible soft tissue, blood vessels, whatever. No, they were able to soak the specimens in acid, and that caused different parts of the chemical compounds to separate from each other, right? It's not that they were actually flexible capillaries in the stone that they found. It's not the same thing. And Joel updates that whenever there's a notable example of somebody being like, look at this soft tissue. So everyone should go check out Dr. Joel Duff's channel. It's just Dr. Joel Duff on YouTube. And he covers this issue extensively. And I don't have the patience for it because it's the same story every time, but he does it every time there's a new one. He takes care of it.
Well, I think my response to this was, why do we find sort of ancient humans, but we don't find ancient dinosaur DNA? I mean, they admit we find sort of hominid, sort of human, the Homo genus DNA and Neanderthal DNA, but not dinosaur. If they lived at the same time, why not?
Yeah. We should have we've got mummified humans. We've got mummified,
Right.
woolly mammoths, right? We have all of these specimens,
Right.
that are intact enough to get complete genome sequences. I
Mhm.
want a Tyrannosaurus Rex genome. That would be the
Right.
awesomest thing ever, right?
Yep.
And we don't have
Jurassic
it
Park, here we come. Yeah.
because they existed an order of magnitude further in the past.
Yep.
Yeah. We got a couple super chats here that I want to make sure I get.
Of
So we've
course.
got Robin Webster for $2. By the way, thank you everybody. You don't have to super chat. It's just I appreciate it. It's very nice of you, but you really don't have to do that. Robin Webster for $2. Hello, Mark and Dan. Thank
Hi,
you for
Robin.
all you do. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Robin, big supporter of my channel and just an awesome human. Just awesome human.
And Meat Permits Dad for $2. Many things get soft when soaked in acid, e.g. me.
Yeah.
Not recommended to test that, but yes. I would imagine most things that are biological at some point in their history will get soft when soaked in acid. Generally, I think that happens. And then one more from Sydney Raptor. This is a really insightful comment. Mary S. did not find soft tissue. She started with a piece of hard, solid, dry medullary bone from the inside of the T-Rex femur bone. The piece was placed in etching acid mistakenly for a few. There's a second part here, and I didn't see the second half. There it is. Mistakenly for a few. I see it. Mistakenly for a few weeks. I'm going to read it while I try to find it so I can put it up on screen. There it is. Mistakenly for a few weeks, which dissolved and removed the minerals. What was left was rinsed and rehydrated, and only then was it made soft. That is a great point. I'll leave that up for a sec. That's a great point. Because that's not like finding red blood cells, in the thing, or you find a specimen in permafrost where the skin is actually intact, which is a thing we found.
Right. Yes.
That's not what this is. It's a very different thing.
And it revolutionized our understanding of how long these structures last in I think it's high iron environments, if I'm right. Like it actually,
we think
revolutionized
iron.
it. Yeah, but one thing it didn't do is show that these fossils weren't millions of years old. That's all.
Yeah. And just so everyone's clear, the reason we know that they're millions of years old is because we can radiometrically date the rocks that they're found in, and that is an absolute method, not a relative method. So, like, unless you want to undermine radiometric dating, you're not going to change the date of those specimens, right? Your options are they're actually over 65 million years old, they're young, and our entire understanding of physics is wrong, or door number 3, they're young because they somehow got into the old rock formations after those rocks formed in such a way that did not contaminate the rocks sufficiently to change their radiometric age, which is a process that I would be skeptical of.
Right, and then you'd have to rely on, well, God did it to fool everybody for some reason.
It gets
goes
messy.
down a whole rabbit hole. Yeah,
it gets messy. But yeah, any creationists that want to dispute radiometric dating, and they'll do the whole thing. Oh, we date the bones by the rocks and the rocks by the bone. No, we don't. There's radiometric dating. It's an absolute dating method. That's how we do it. And then you can use index fossils where we have this fossil specimen, right? This species or whatever in this layer, and then anywhere, and it's only in that layer that we've directly dated. And then we can then use that elsewhere without having to do the radiometric dating, right?
Yep.
So you can use an index fossil. That's totally fine. But what we're not doing is this circular me, you, where there's no absolute aspect to it. So if you want to undermine the dating, you have to undermine radiometric dating, which means you have to explain how one of my favorite things in history works, which is the Oklo natural nuclear reactors. And you have to explain how those are wrong, because that proves, to the extent you can prove anything in science, that all of this stuff, radiometric decay, radiometric fission, neutron capture, all these processes operate right now the same way they have operated for at least 2 billion years.
Yep.
And do that or stop wasting our time, basically. And Andrew tells me that Donnie just made a video response to the Oklo nuclear reactor, by
Oh,
the
yeah,
way.
he did. Yeah.
And I mean to watch that, and I still haven't actually made a video dedicated to that because I'm not a physicist nor a geologist, and I don't want to screw it up. But what I've seen RawMat try to address the Oklo problem, and what they say is that, well, it's just the same stuff sped up, not realizing that fission and decay are two different processes with different decay chain, like with different daughter isotopes. So you can't just speed it up to mimic the effects. It's different isotopes that are there. Plus, decay doesn't get you the neutron capture, which specific for this is going off down the rabbit hole a bit.
Format,
but
yeah.
specifically for Oklo, there's the I think it was samarium 149 was too low and samarium 150 was higher due to the excess neutron capture, because more neutrons are liberated via fission compared to decay. So that other isotope was out of whack, and you could accelerate the decay, but it doesn't solve that problem because you just need more neutrons than it creates. The rate doesn't matter. You need more of them. And so, yeah, it's just speeding it up doesn't help. It's a different process. Shall we continue?
Yeah, sure.
How do we interpret them? That's what the difference is. And we're going to be looking at evidence. Let's take a look at high confidence evidence. This is repeatable and testable, and it's directly observable. It's prospective, and it's careful to avoid bias. And you do that by doing blind tests, or even better yet, double blind tests. And it's careful to avoid assumptions. The fewer assumptions you make, the stronger your theory is. And the more accurate predictions.
Evolution falls into all of these. Like, it's amazing that you talk to people who are like, oh, they can't do experiments of evolution. It's like Lenski labs, they do all kinds of like they're constantly like Drops-Filier experiments.
Yeah, and Lenski is a great example, because one of the big famous findings in Lenski is the evolution of a trait that, according to Michael Behe's definition, is irreducibly complex. But we saw it happen in the lab. So your options become irreducibly complex traits can evolve, or God directly interfered in the Lenski experiment. That's it. Those are your options, right? Because we watched it happen. I just want to highlight a few comments here, and chat, I just want you to know how much I appreciate you, because this is what's going on in chat right now. Rob Stadler alert. It's literally his slides. Hell yeah, Rob Stadler. Is this exactly Rob Stadler's slide? Yes, it is, folks. That is exactly Rob Stadler's slide. 100%. Yes. I appreciate that you all immediately clock that as this dude is just copying from Rob Stadler. Yep. 100%. Good job.
Hey, look, I made my own slides for this. I'll say that. Come on. That's the least you can do. Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Straight up stole it from Rob Stadler.
Ridiculous.
You make, the more robust your theory is, and then it makes reasonable claims. Now, low confidence evidence is not testable. It's not repeatable. Nobody saw it, and it's looking backwards, and there's clear opportunities for bias. And one of the biggest biases is to eliminate any opposing ideas. That would be a methodological naturalism, where they say all there is matter and energy. That's all you're allowed to think in. You got to stay in this material box.
Nope. That's not what methodological naturalism is. It's not what it is. He just said methodological naturalism and then went on to describe philosophical naturalism, which is a different thing. And it just...
And so, yeah.
Like, I don't know what to do with that when someone is just like, here's a word and here's the wrong definition. And that's what my argument is based on. Like,
when you go to physics, quantum fields aren't matter or energy, but they're still in science. So that's categorically wrong. Like, it does not limit it to just those two things.
Yeah. It has to be observable, quantifiable, somehow able to be evaluated. Empirical. Yeah. And as soon as I've been saying this for as long as I've been arguing on the internet with creationists, which is it's a while now, we'll say. It's a while. It's 2 decades at this point. And I'm not ashamed to admit that, maybe a little bit. But I've been saying this for this whole time. Give me a way to measure any kind of supernatural event, and you're in.
Yep.
congratulations, welcome to the club. You can participate now. You can come sit at the adults table, right? But until we have a way to measure that, to quantify it, to observe it, whatever, then I don't know what you want me to do, creationists.
Well, I don't know. From my perspective, I just, at a very base line, I just want a some kind of falsification criteria. That's it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, at the base level, just how do we tell that it's not the thing? And this kind of goes into philosophy and Karl Popper, where he sort of said, well, things that are unfalsifiable, they're not even really worth considering as true. They're not even worth investigating, because, you know, it's like Russell's teapot, right? You have a teapot around Jupiter. It's too small to be seen. It you know, may or may not exist. How do you falsify it? If you can't, it's not even worth looking into, because there is no way to tell if it is true or not.
Yeah. And it's funny that this comes up as we have Rob Stadler's slide on screen here. I've been trying to get Rob Stadler in the comments of one of my videos. He's been commenting about how, and I've been trying to say, like, I've just been asking probably 8 or 9 times at this point, what observations are incompatible with your separate ancestry hypothesis, right? Just like, tell me what is, because I can address your concern if I know what your falsification criteria are.
Right.
And that applies to every creationist argument, to Brian, to Stadler, to Michael Behe, to, like, I can address your argument as soon as I know what would be incompatible with your hypothesis. And if you can't answer that question, you're not doing science, period.
Correct. Yeah.
And so they eliminate everything else. And if that's the only horse in the race, of course they're going to get all the grant funding. Okay, and then there's many assumptions that are required, and then overstated claims. Okay, so what's an example of high confidence evidence? That'd be, how fast does an object fall? You can test it, you can repeat it, you can observe it, you can do it over and over and over again. And if you make a reasonable claim, it's like, this is how fast it falls. That's high confidence. What's low confidence? Do humans and bacteria share genes from a common ancestor?
I'm laughing because he even stole the example from Stadler's slide. He didn't even change the argument that Stadler made. And this is like a whole big thing where the lead up to this slide was me and Erica and Professor Dave did a thing about James Tour and Rob Stadler, and there's been months of back and forth coming from that. But this slide in Stadler's presentation actually rests on a misunderstanding of what the word conserved means in the context of evolution. It doesn't just mean similar, it means inherited from a common ancestor.
Yes.
And what happened is Stadler was like, you know, we can see that it's conserved, but that doesn't mean it's from a common ancestor. It's like, Rob, that's what that word means. That's literally the definition of the word that you're... Yeah. Anyway, Brian's just stealing this thing from a completely unrelated presentation that exists in a very specific context, and that's why the examples are what they are. And it's just funny that he's using that without any of that context, like all stripped away. It's fine. This is worse than I thought, and this is, like I've said, the 3rd time I'm watching it. I don't know how you sat there, Mark. I don't know how you did it.
Look, it to me, it's you know, I have a strategy of give these people enough rope. Like, you want to have the explanations and the answers on point. So it's very easy to say, hey, that's not what we're testing. What we're testing is whether, you know, we can say, hey, mutation rates are this, substitution rates are this. You know, we can analyze that. We can do things like test endogenous retroviruses, see which ones that are common in between genetics. And even they did an experiment to reactivate one. It was called the Phoenix virus, where they got one, a dormant ERV in the genetic code, the last sort of, I can't remember which viral element it was part of, but they actually sort of used CRISPR to substitute some genetics. I don't know exactly how, but it came back alive as a virus. It 100% was a virus. It came back.
Yeah,
and it was very weak.
You have the remnant sequence, and it's mutated, and there's usually deletions. There's parts missing, but if you can modify it to fix the mutations, because you know what the right thing is, and put back the parts that are missing, you can kind of resurrect it as an active circulating virus. They're able to show experimentally that that's possible. Yeah, that's a pretty direct observation, because
pretty damn direct. Yeah, so we know these things are. I mean, endogenous retrovirus is one of my favorite because it is so so strong evidence for common ancestry, because we have the viral elements. We share so many with chimpanzees, and even with fish. You know, we have same elements in our DNA. So, and we know that they were viruses. They have all the structure of it. And just to prove it, we did an experiment that resurrected one. We know these are the fragments of viruses.
Yeah, couldn't be clearer.
Mm.
Use your own slides, Brian. Just the lack of respect. Like this rubs me the wrong way, just because of like the lack of effort and the lack of respect also. And that's totally separate from the content or like the craft of making an argument or anything, but just like have the freaking decency to like make your own materials and arguments, or if you're going to use someone else's, like very clearly cite that you're using somebody else's, please.
Well, he's got something down the bottom. It just
it's the Twin City creationist thing. It's not Rob Stadler's stuff though. He's I don't think he's citing Stadler here. He's just kind of like he does reference the book. I don't know if he's going to do it now or in the rebuttal say. He does reference Rob Stadler's book at some point. So he says like this is what I'm talking about, but it's just it's just bad form to just like lift the graphics and the context specific argument and just use it with no modifications. It's just bad form.
Well, doing his own slides, he'd have to actually understand the topic. So maybe that's the problem. You know, he doesn't actually want to look into and understand what the issues are. He wants to just,
yeah. As we're seeing, there's a lot of just repeating words we have heard without necessarily understanding them going on, is what it seems. Yeah.
Sure. Well, that's not testable. That's not repeatable. That you haven't seen. And there's no respect. You're looking backwards and there's bias there. You know, one of the biases is there's no God. So now it just has to be from a common ancestor.
Christian evolutionary biologists don't exist, apparently. Just Joel Duff doesn't exist. Apparently.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
And there's many assumptions and also many rescuing devices. And the more rescuing devices there are, that's something that's imagined to be.
Rescuing devices is definitely on the bingo card.
Oh, really?
Well, somebody's going to have rescue device. Oh, yeah, that's on there.
I think that came from Donnie. He's been using it a lot. And it's so bad because you've got the ultimate rescuing device of God, you know, because he literally can do anything, you know.
Oh, we'll get there.
Oh, okay,
we're gonna get there.
Yeah,
I know. Just like a painter, a painting needs a painter, except for the universe. It's like
right,
or like except for God. It's like, well, hang on, man. Yeah, we'll get there. It's
true. That can't happen. Okay, and so now we're going to make claims tonight, like this one is in a textbook. Organisms as dissimilar as humans and bacteria share genes inherited from a very distant common ancestor. So is this high confidence, testable, observable? No, this is low confidence. And so that's what I'm going to try, and tonight I'm going to try and stay on the high confidence side of the evidence.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn more about this, Dr. Rob Stadler, he wrote the book, The Scientific Approach to Evolution. And I'm going to give people sources tonight so you can learn on your own. You can go onto YouTube's TCCSA and you can listen to him talk about it. And other things. It's broken up into biology, astronomy, geology, and you can see what creationists say on those things. And then now let's talk about the elephant in the room, miracles. These are things that violate laws of physics, and everybody believes in it because everybody needs to get matter from nothing, violates the first law of thermodynamics, order from chaos, violates the second law, life from non-life, violates the law of biogenesis, immaterial ideas from matter, that's Einstein's gulf that he said was unbridgeable, and consciousness from matter, which I
just want to point out that you could get bingo on this slide alone. This can do it for you right here. There's
if you get lucky, sure.
That was straight through. There was, first law, second law, law of misunderstanding Pasteur and the law of biogenesis, right? Yes. It just hitting all of them. And there's a difference between abiogenesis, right? Life originating on a planet where there is no living things versus the law of biogenesis, which is given that there are living things, all new living things come from existing living things. Those are two different ideas. They are separate from each other. Creationists love to think that Pasteur applies 4 billion years ago, and that's not the case. Mark, do you have any thoughts?
Oh, just the sort of, he's trying to sort of philosophize at the end, sort of, consciousness can't come from matter kind of thing. And it's like, well, yeah, it can. Yes. We observe it. Yes.
No, you can physically look at brains and be like, this brain
Uh-huh.
is sufficiently complex to have consciousness. This brain is
Yep.
not. Like, there's a threshold of complexity where at some point
Mhm.
you have consciousness.
Yes. And the more complex the brain, the more complex the consciousness is. It's not, and they sort of want to go to, well, this kind of dualism idea that your brain is just a receiver for whatever it is. And it's like, that's fine if you believe that. But it's not scientific, because there's no way to falsify this idea. And it also doesn't cover things like split brain patients, that when you
Mhm.
split a brain down the middle, it forms two different consciousness.
Yeah.
It's wild. If you've ever read up on it, it is
Uh-huh.
wild stuff.
I talk about that in class a little bit when we talk about brain structure and the corpus callosum, the connection between the two.
Yeah.
And one of the observations that I learned as an undergraduate is that different parts of your brain process visual and auditory information on different hemispheres. So, for example, if you have a split brain syndrome and you see something in your right field of view, then you can, I forget if it's either you can say it out loud or you can write it. And then if you see the same words in your left field of view, you can only do the opposite, right? In one field of view, you can write it. And in the other field of view, you can say it, but you can't do both in just one field of view because of the disrupted connection. And and it shows very clearly that there's a physical component to this thing we call consciousness, right? It's such a good example that shows that. Yeah.
But it's even weirder because the left brain controls the right hand and the right brain controls the left hand. So you have to write it in your left hand. But it's even weirder because when they showed somebody, like one was a saw and one was a hammer, and he would say, hey, that's a hammer, but his left hand would be drawing a picture of a saw. And the weirdest part was that both sides agreed it was the same thing. That was the weirdest part.
It's really interesting stuff. And it things like that where you have disruptions to the way the brain typically functions that lead to really interesting outcomes like that show that it's a material system.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also a bunch of people in chat right now are commenting on the physics of all of this, which is I'm not sure what was a response to, but it could legitimately be anything that was said related to this slide.
Up until now, yeah.
We've got I'm marking nothing became something. Yep, that's definitely on there. Entropy does not equal disorder. Correct. Yes. And especially with regard to biological systems, one of my favorite descriptions for life, because we talk about life, if anyone's ever taken like high school biology, you learn that life are things that meet like a bunch of things, right? It's metabolism, reproduction, grow and develop, response to environment, right? There's this whole list of things. If you check all the boxes, that's what life is. A definition for life that I really like, that I think is really cool, is a system that causes a local decrease in entropy.
Okay.
That's it. I think that's really cool. Now, you can find things that are non-living that probably meet that definition. But
like viruses and stuff. Oh, viruses
that's why.
That's
why I like the definition, because it includes viruses.
Right. Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. But you could probably find physical systems that do a similar thing. But I think something you can say is that one thing that all life does is cause local reductions in entropy, right? It's localized anti-entropy machines, basically. And now
generally when you put energy into any system, it causes a reduction in entropy.
Because you're gonna, the way I explain entropy in my classes, because I don't actually understand entropy, but I've run this past a bunch of people who do, and they've said it's good enough for intro bio, college intro bio, and it's basically given a set of matter, whatever, It's the number of possible configurations you can have. So like if you're talking about cellular respiration, right? You start with glucose, which is 6 carbons all bound together, and you end with 6 molecules of CO2, which is 6 individual carbons with oxygen bound to them that are separate. The 6 CO2 molecules have way more possible configurations in space compared to the single glucose molecule. That represents an increase in entropy, right? And biological systems go the opposite way, right? We take the CO2, not us, but plants, we take the CO2, and we connect it, and we build bigger things, which is less entropy compared to the smaller separate things.
Yep.
I don't want to get out over my skis talking about entropy. I've got, I saw Chris here. Our friend Dr. Chris Thompson says, hey, Dan, you got some of the details about split brain wrong, but mostly you got it right. I'll take it.
Okay.
I'll take it. Speaking outside my field, take it with a grain of salt. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so Dr. Chris Thompson is amazing. I love his channel. It is neurology and just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
And he definitely knows that's his field. So he definitely knows that stuff. Take his word for it. Don't listen to me. He knows it.
Oh, don't listen to me on anything, quite frankly. I
don't think I've seen anybody try to explain. So let's just look in the third one. How did life begin? Was it by blind chance or was it by creation?
False dichotomy, drink / bingo, whatever game you're playing, do it.
Yep.
Just just so lazy. This is what we're talking about, Mark. And at some point, I forget if you said it live or in a comment somewhere, but you said this isn't bottom of the barrel creationism. This is in the dirt under the barrel.
Oh, yeah.
And what is this?
Well, it was even worse against Planet Peterson because he was giving him the choice to choose between blind creation, chance, and creation, and basically saying there's no other answer that fits. Look, a false dichotomy, all you have to do is give a third option, and that's a deterministic natural process. It's not blind chance and it's not creation. You're done. Your dichotomy is over.
Yeah, that's it. And one of the things that creationists cannot accept, and I say it that way deliberately, it's not that they don't understand it or whatever. I think it's something that if they were to accept it, it would be a severe problem for their argument, their worldview, whatever. But one thing that is obviously true in biological systems and biochemical systems and chemical systems is that natural selection predates the existence of living things. You can have natural selection operating on a pool of chemicals that differ in either their rate of origination and or their stability. And that pool will come to be dominated by some chemicals over others just based on differences in those characteristics. And once you throw replication into it, now replication fidelity becomes one of those variables. Selection is going to occur on that system before any cellular life exists. That's not blind chance. That's not creation. That's a different option. It just, again, I don't know how you didn't come in after this and just do the Billy Madison thing or the My Cousin Vinny thing.
That is the dumbest thing that's said by any human being. We're all dumber for having heard it.
Yeah. May I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, it's just for me. I'm like I said, I'm on the autism spectrum, so for me, it is like at this point, what I'm doing is furiously writing notes. Like this is the thing, and people don't do it in debates, and it's one of the things that if you want to debate, really write notes because I'll come back and I will. Yeah, in my rebuttal, I just went through and just annihilated each of these points, and you can't do that without notes. You may think, oh well, I've got a good memory. Maybe you do, but I don't, and not many people.
Nobody has a good enough memory for this many.
Right. And don't forget, even if you have a good memory, your brain will try to forget this kind of stuff because it is so absurd. It really is absurd. So notes. So I don't know. I am only barely listening to this and more just focusing on, okay, that's what he said. This is what I'm going to do afterwards, kind of thing.
Yeah. I would imagine you're just writing because he's saying this, we're pausing and it's taking us forever to go through this, but you're doing this in real time over the course of 12 minutes, just like soft tissue and dinosaur bones, false
Yep.
dichotomy for the beginning of the universe, right? Whatever. And here's a funny thing. As I'm saying that, I'm trying to remember what was in between, and I don't remember, because that's how short-term
Right.
memory works, folks.
Yep.
You're not gonna remember all of it. You got to write it down.
Mm.
And then you can just come back in your rebuttal and go, he said this, that's a false dichotomy. He said they found soft tissue. They didn't find soft tissue. They,
Correct. Yeah.
used acid to dissolve the minerals, and then it was flexible, like whatever, right?
Mhm.
Like, you had all of the rebuttals ready to go. You just had to
Yes.
go down the whole list. And it was a long
Yep.
list, because this is, again, I want to point out, folks, this is a Gish Gallop. He is jumping around from topic to topic to topic here. He's talking about
Yeah.
the parameters of good and bad science. He's talking about the origins of life, the origins of the universe, soft tissue. Like, he's all over the place.
Yep. Well, in your introduction, it's like Gish Gallop's very specific. It's during the debate you try to put out topics so they can't keep up. But this is sort of what we'd call a shotgun approach. You basically scatter it as far and as wide as possible to sort of try to, not let the other person get to it. So if you don't take notes, you're never going to remember half of this stuff, because it is there and gone and onto a completely separate topic with nothing to do with the original one. Absolutely. And it's by design.
Yep, this is a specific tactic. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I just want to point this out. If God made Adam out of dirt, why is there still dirt? That's well played, left-handed Jedi. And
checkmate, creationist.
And we've got Dennis Noble. He's like Hovind, minus all the assault and tax evasion. True. As far as we know. True, as far as we know.
Look, I will place him above Hovind because he agreed to something during a debate and did it. He refrained from doing something, which Hovind never does. He'll always say, we agree to one topic at a time. So Hovind, the weird thing about him is when he agrees for something in a debate, like one topic at a time, the thing that I realized is, well, he's not talking about himself, right? He's literally talking about you.
You need to stay. Yeah.
Right. Like he really is this weird narcissistic, in my opinion, this narcissist that thinks if I agree to something, I'm agreeing so you will stop it. But like most normal people would say, oh, we agree to it so both of us don't do it. I don't think he sees it that way, which is so wild. I came to this realization. I'm like, wow, he actually thinks it's not for him. He's not bound by this agreement.
Yeah. We've got $2 from Meat Permits Tad. Thank you again, Meat Permits Tad. As an IT professional with ASD, I appreciate Mark.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Meat Permits. Look, the IT, it's rife with ASD people because we love process, we love structured things, and we like, sort of pottering with stuff. So it's full of people with ASD. And, it's one of those things. It's you sort of learn to manage. There's no cure or anything, but you learn to manage. And I think the world's better off for it. I think my favorite ASD scientist was probably Cavendish, who definitely was. Like, you heard of the Cavendish experiment where he measured gravity kind of thing, so by using weights? Apparently at parties, if a scientist came up to him at the time, they would have to talk like they were talking to the air and not address him directly, or he would run away. Literally run away. And I think that was a beautiful man. The problem was that nobody understood it. So we actually found in Cavendish notes like half a dozen other things that people discovered later. He actually discovered first.
Yeah.
He didn't tell anybody. And that is really where it's at for me, why we've got to understand neurodivergent people.
Yes, totally agree. Let's continue with Brian, folks. Are you all ready?
And this is what the college textbook says. To the best of our knowledge, it should say to the best of our knowledge based on a blind chance perspective of the past. And it goes down and says somehow, despite this harsh environment, living organisms appeared. So they don't have
because we have fossils of them that we can date using like uranium lead dating. I forget the methods that we can go back that far, but I think uranium lead is one of them. And I think strontium isochrons are another one that go back really far. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like,
uranium lead is the smoking gun of young Earth. It destroys it because you have zircons where, they'll say, well, you don't know how much daughter element was there. So how much lead was already there? Yeah, we do, because zircons can't form with any
They can't form
lead
with, yeah,
whatsoever.
it's
So we know
impossible.
there was zero. And then
Yeah.
they say, well, you don't know how much parent isotope there. It's like, we don't need to.
It doesn't
because
matter.
It's a ratio.
Right.
So-
Given a certain amount of lead, we know how much uranium had to be there to make that
Right.
amount of lead, because we know
Correct.
that we can directly observe the amount of lead that's there, and we know the
The
rate,
rate, yep.
at which the lead accumulates. So we know what the starting conditions were. Based on those two variables, we can get the third thing, and then we know how long that takes. Like, and again, the thing with the zircons, if there's lead present, they don't form. It can't happen. And again, I don't understand geology, but I've read enough about this one to know this one.
Yeah, yes.
If there's lead present in the location where the reactions, whatever it is that's going to form them, are happening, they will not form because the lead interferes with the formation. So we know that when they formed, there was no lead. Like, guys, oh my goodness. And again, creationist, direct observation. Yeah, you can try to do it when there's lead and it doesn't happen. It doesn't work with lead. Yeah, as somebody in the chat just said, the uranium,
not to mention that these dating methods, they all overlap one another. Like, so we can use multiple methods and get the same result. So it
I like that people know more about this than I do. Yes, the argon is the refined uranium lead. Yes, and the argon does a better job. There's also potassium argon is a newer one. Yes, good. Thank you, chat, for knowing more about geology than I do.
Yeah. Well, this is why people specialize, and I've had sort of geologists explain this to me at length. And obviously, don't understand it completely, but they know what they're talking about, and that's why we have specialists like Dr. Dan Stern-Cardinal, who specializes in evolutionary biology and teaches us all tons of stuff, which is awesome.
Somehow is not science. It should not be in a science book. That's definitely not testable. And if you go up there, it says that it rained on hot rock for millions of years, and that's what happened before somehow. So technically, if you believe in blind chance, you believe that we came from rock. Okay, and they haven't started. You can get $10 million. All you have to do is solve the largest mystery in history: how genetic code inside cells got there, and how cells intentionally self-organize, communicate, then purposefully adapt. And so let's take a look at what's happened.
Just want to say that challenge is written in such a way that nobody can get it, but we do have a really good understanding of the origins of the genetic code. And one of my favorite papers, possibly my favorite paper of all time, is on it. It's a paper called "Confounded Cytosine: Tinkering," and I think it's, the subtitle is, I think it's "Tinkering and Origins of the Genetic Code," and it's about why RNA has uracil and DNA has thymine, and the answer is because cytosine is unstable, and that's why it works the way it does. And it's one of my favorite papers. It's such a cool look at like the early evolutionary history of living systems and genetic systems, and is a really interesting illustration of one of my favorite pieces of evidence for the universal common ancestry of all living things on Earth, which is we all use the same genetic system. And that paper talks about one of the big ideas is just how contingent it is. The genetic system that we have is not the only one that will work. You don't have to replace uracil with thymine to make it work. You can replace cytosine with something else and keep uracil. Why didn't we do that? Because evolution worked the way it did. That's why. It just happened to be, right? The fact is, keeping cytosine and switching to thymine is a suboptimal solution to the problem. Because, so the background here, folks, is that when cytosine mutates, which it does at a rate several orders of magnitude faster than the other nucleotides, the most common mutation that occurs is this thing called spontaneous deamination. And when cytosine does that, it becomes uracil. So if you have a genome that uses both cytosine and uracil, that's a big problem, because now if you have a uracil, you don't know if it's supposed to be uracil or if it's actually supposed to be cytosine, right? If you swap out uracil for thymine, now anytime you see a uracil in your genome, you know it should actually be cytosine and you can repair it.
Mhm.
Or maybe we could just use something that's compatible with guanine, but less unstable. Maybe that's an option too, but we didn't do that. We swapped out uracil
Right.
for thiamine instead and just dealt with the instability of cytosine. And the fact that every living thing on Earth has this stupid workaround solution of using thiamine instead of swapping out cytosine for a more stable compound, that's
Mhm.
really strong evidence that we all share a common ancestor that did that at some point in its history. And it's
And that's the
it's
story of evolution, right? It's good
yeah,
enough.
it's
Good
right.
enough.
It's good enough that you don't die, and that's fine.
Mhm.
And you just muddle
Yep.
on through. Yeah. And so that's I'm gonna put the name of this paper in the chat. It's called Confounded Cytosine! Exclamation point. And if you Google that, you'll find it. It's a really, really fun read. And I love that paper.
Oh, I'd love to grab it. And I also want to point out that this is just one hypothesis, and one from a very long time ago. It's really talking about the primordial soup kind of hypothesis. And there's so many that we have. It's not that we don't have an idea. It's just that there are competing hypotheses because we don't exactly know how. That doesn't give any more credence to God done it. It just means that the one that I was looked up on because Grayson Hawk, who's an awesome guy, he did a great video on amyloid world, and all it is just basically amyloids that have a selection mechanism and a replication mechanism, and that's all they need. Like you were saying earlier, you don't even have to have life. That's all you need.
Yeah.
So, and we don't know if that's true. We don't know if that's the one that it was. But, just because we don't know doesn't give any more credence to a God.
Exactly.
Against diet ourselves.
Now we see the polymerase in action from the outside.
Oh, and this is where we get to the Discovery Institute animations.
Oh, great.
It spits out the messenger RNA transcript. Next, this RNA transcript approaches and passes through a molecular machine called the nuclear pore complex, an information recognition device that controls the flow of information in and out of the cell's nucleus.
So this is silly because this is Discovery. I think this is from Discovery Institute, and it's way they're describing all this is in very like machine sounding language. But the nuclear pore complex is basically, it's just a protein complex. And if you bump into it with the right molecule, it changes shape and the molecule can fit through. That's all it does. And the right molecule is an mRNA with a 5' cap. And as long as you bump into it with the 5' cap, then that's going to cause a change in shape, and the mRNA can fit through it. It's, they call it like information processing system. It's just chemicals bumping into each other and changing shape. It's not.
Yeah. They take these terms too literally, in my experience. They sort of talk about DNA being like a computer code. And yeah, it kind of like, you can make this analogy, but it's not exactly the same. It's a chemical reaction. And I've sort of pointed out, it sounds to me, from being in an IT world, it works more like an instruction set than a computer code. And if you work with computers, you'll kind of understand what those are as opposed to one another, which, but it's just this idea that they're incredulous. They're just like, this couldn't have occurred by chance because I don't think it could have.
Yeah.
Where it's sort of, that's not what we base science on. We say, hey, this has occurred. What does it lead to? Not, well, we're going to eliminate this possibility because I don't think so.
Exactly. And that's 100% correct. And a great example of this is if you've ever listened to Jonathan McClatchy, who's a Discovery Institute guy. He actually has a degree in evolutionary biology. And like his hallmark argument that he likes to make, the thing that you hear him say that's kind of unique to him, is he takes a very like Bayesian approach to all this. And he talks about like, well, according to your priors, it's reasonable to think that systems that have certain characteristics are more likely to be the result of design versus undirected processes. And we see those characteristics in living things. Therefore, it's reasonable to think they have right. He dresses it all up like this. But if you like dig into his arguments, go, okay, so you're talking about like Bayesian priors and what you expect based on those priors. Well, what are the Bayesian priors that make you think like cells, we should conclude that cells are more likely to be designed rather than the result of evolution? Like, oh, well, they have complex interdependent systems and blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, So irreducible complexity, quantify that. Oh,
Yeah.
specified complexity, quantify that, right? Draw me a line in the sand where I can assign systems to either they have it or they don't. And so you can dress it up any way you want. And it goes, sometimes you have to go through like 3 levels of obfuscation, but you always end up at one of like a dozen creationist arguments. And then if you go below that, it always ends up as, subjectively, to me, it doesn't look like it could evolve.
Right. And the whole idea of it looks designed, I've pointed out things like hagstones, right? They're a stone with a hole in it. And it looks like someone went and drilled a hole. That's why they're called hagstones. People thought witches were doing them and they used them as protection and things. But in fact, it's just hydraulic erosion of certain rivers that basically drill holes through these stones. So it looks designed, but it's not. We've got a lot of things like this that we look at them and go, oh, someone must have done that. But that's not necessarily the case. Things can look designed, and in fact, they are not designed. So they don't have any criteria to say, hey, this looks designed. It's just that's where my conclusion is. So that's what I'm going to see. They don't actually quantify, as you said, quantify how to actually measure design in any way.
It goes back to what we said all the way at the beginning, where, you know, the phrase that you always hear from like the Answers in Genesis people is you have to put your Bible glasses on, right? You put your Bible glasses on, and then everything flows from there. You have to interpret everything in the context of believing Genesis, for example, right? And that's really, when you boil every creationist argument down, it just comes down to that. And this opening is such a good example of that, because he's throwing every piece of spaghetti at the wall, but it's all just, I don't think that could happen. I don't think this could evolve, but that's all it is. It's all subjective incredulity. One more thing with this that speaking of going back a few minutes, talk about taking notes so you don't forget what you mean to say. You talked about computers a few minutes ago, and I think that's such a great counter example to how systems like DNA work, because computers are, if I can say it this way, computers are a lot smarter than DNA, in that, like, what everybody learns when you're learning to code is that if there's a problem, it's a problem with you, because the computer is going to do what you tell it, right? The computer doesn't make logical errors. It just does what you tell it to do and follows the logic of whatever you write out. And if there's a problem there, you messed up because the computer's not messing up. DNA does not work that way. DNA is this messy system where it's basically just stuff bumping into other stuff. And sometimes it sticks together and reacts in a certain way. And natural selection will often favor the persistence of systems that react a certain way when they bump into each other. And like, it's messy chemistry. And, you know, we haven't gotten there yet, but we will, you know, junk DNA and everything. And like, that's just another example of just how stuff is messy. And like, it'll react and it'll transcribe and it'll have activity. Doesn't mean it's doing something important. It's just chemistry happening. And that's a really important distinction. Computer systems don't just do chemistry. They follow logic, and DNA does not.
It would be like if you had the basic instruction sets and the basic like pathways of the computer could change all over the place, and you know, that would be fatal for a computer system. But humans, our entire DNA is up in the air. It can change however. So, you know,
it's kind of a funny analogy, but if you've ever seen those videos where, you know how people will try to like speed run old video games, like they'll try to speed run like Mario, right? And they'll take advantage of like the coding in the game to, like, if you have this enemy spawn at this point, the last bit spills over into this other memory slot, and then that causes this other thing to happen, right? And you can kind of like have these cascade of errors happen within the programming of the game. That's how DNA works all the time. Where there's just weird stuff having these unpredictable interactions. And sometimes cool stuff happens. And then it's like when you're mashing buttons and you're like, oh, I got to make that happen again, right? It's not like a computer. It's just not. And the more you study DNA, the more you see it's not at all like a computer.
That's really interesting that the DNA kind of exploits bugs, like bugs in the system,
Oh,
it
yeah.
kind of exploits them. But the cost is that, it's so, like, for every time a bug is exploited, you lose like so much of the population because of these bugs, like it's.
Yeah. And that's why, like viruses, have these giant population sizes and
Yeah.
super high mutation rates. You can find the best thing, but it's only 0.1% of the population, and everybody else is below the optimum. Yeah, right. Yeah, and the cool thing is you can describe those dynamics mathematically based on things like the population size, mutation rate, the effects of populations, and predict exactly what you expect to see and be correct about it.
Yeah, and then see it. Yep.
And
that's
so cool. I got a couple comments I want to highlight here.
Okay.
From Bitcourse. He's playing a video in his opening statement. Yes, he is.
That's okay. We agreed to limit it to the openings and not have it. The previous times he was on, it was all somebody's creationist YouTube video. Like, it really was. So this is actually an improvement for Brian. I want to encourage him in this direction.
Moving in that direction. I mean, if anybody, it's been a while since he's been on YouTube, but if anybody remembers LPP, logical.
Oh yeah, Maddox, John Maddox.
John Maddox, yeah. He would always play videos, or he'd like pre-record his intros and try to play. It's just bad form, folks. It's just bad form. Also, I want to just discourage this. Drink every time they say. Don't drink every time they say information. Don't do that. I'm going to strongly discourage that. Do not
drink
do that
responsibly. That is irresponsible drinking. Yeah.
If you are playing the creationist drinking game, don't do that. That is irresponsible drinking. I'm reminded of a time that this wasn't me because I had a class the next morning, but during a Republican primary debate, and Mark, I don't know how familiar you are with U.S. politics, so this may not ring for you, but
a little bit.
For anyone who knows U.S. political parties, two of my friends, we were going to watch a Republican presidential primary debate when we were in college, and they decided to play the primary debate drinking game, and the only word they picked was taxes, and the moderator comes in, and they're like, welcome, everybody. Tonight, we're going to start with the economy. And then every word from all 9 candidates was income tax, alternative minimum tax, death tax, business, and we stopped playing that game after like 20 minutes.
Wow. Yeah.
Don't do that. Drink responsibly if you are drinking at all.
Did that get there by blind chance, or do you think that was created? And we can do
Now we see the genetic assembly instructions on the messenger RNA approaching and arriving at a 2-part chemical factory called a ribosome, the site of protein synthesis.
And we could do all night on that, just what's happening in a cell. But you can see this on YouTube, Discovery Science, and its journey inside the cell. And then where did that information recognition device come from? And you guys can vote in the chat. Was it A, blind chance, or B, creation? This can be interactive. And how about kinesin?
All right, we don't have to watch another video. Kinesin is a transport protein. It's fine. It's a protein. It reacts with other things, so we don't have to do it. Complex, and there's ATP synthase. It's complex. Great. Complexity is not a barrier to evolution. Thank you. Oh, and now we get, I think we get a long story short video in here. I think that's what this is.
And so did that happen by chance? Yep. And the average human uses a billion trillion ATP molecules every second. That's your entire body weight of ATP.
That is not true. You don't use your body weight in ATP every second. That is not true.
That's right. Like, how did I not see that? That
would
be ridiculous.
You don't use your body weight because, oh my God, I just think about what that would entail, folks. Just think about that first. That doesn't pass the sniff test. I don't know why people say things like this. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. It's an adenine base, deoxyribose, and 3 phosphate groups. And it doesn't have a long half-life because it's a highly unstable molecule. So ATP lasts like 5 to 10 seconds in your cells. But you don't use your body weight in ATP every second. That's insane. It's absolutely bananas to say that. I have no idea how anybody could think that's the case. Like, because you have to circulate all the atoms through your body to how? Because if you're using your body weight in ATP every second, that also implies you're using your body mass in ATP. Well, that has to come from somewhere, and your body is not made out of ATP. It just, God. This is one of the moments where I just be like, I got nothing. I don't know even what to say to that. Anybody in the chat, feel free to like give me a way to respond to that, because that is crazy. It's every day, because he said every second. Maybe he just said
Chris
it wrong.
Decker says it goes from ATP to ADP. So
Yeah,
maybe
it stays.
yeah.
It stays the same molecule. It's just you break off one of the phosphates, so that the adenosine diphosphate doesn't even change. So like, what are you even? Your whole body weight would have to be. It's crazy. That might be the most out there claim in this whole thing. Me permits that. I'm losing 230 pounds of ATP per second. Guess I'm a fusion reactor. Yeah, that one's wild to me. It also generate a lot of heat.
Yeah.
Every day, so you stay alive.
Okay.
And again, how did you live before that? And so where did that ATP come from? Go ahead and vote.
Well, there wasn't a me before that. That's the thing. That isn't like, you realize that humans aren't going back to and this is the thing. Like, you mentioned your creationist glasses, and they seem to put them on with everything, because they go, well, how did you survive before you had this system in the cell? And it's like, but I wasn't around when that originated.
Yeah.
So I didn't, because I wasn't around. Like,
yeah.
We're just lucky as can be that all those things are going to the right place at the right time to keep you alive? Or do you think there was a creator, a creation involved? And so real quickly, we're talking about the proper perspective of the past. Is it by blind chance, or is it creation? See, I went even farther. It's the Big Bang. People think that the universe got here by chance, and other people think humans got here by chance. That's the Big Bang and evolution. I just loop them together and call them blind chancers. We talked about science. It needs to be testable. Evolution, we're talking about common ancestors. And we really need to separate the facts from the conclusions. Facts are verifiable. And Mark and I, we got the same facts, but we have different conclusions. And then we have to look at what evidence is being supplied. Is it high confidence? Is it testable? Or is it low confidence? Is it just imagined? And then we're going to look at the miracles, and then the complexity of the cell, and then also the sources. And then I'm also encouraging, I think that we should have multiple theories that people should look at so people can think. And that's the other thing. So I encourage you to get a pen and paper and just write down the sources so that you can go out and check it out and make a really good informed decision. And that includes, you got to see both sides if you want to think. And that's not happening in class. So thank you so much for Donnie for putting this together. And thanks again, Mark, for
it's incredible how often their arguments are the same as flat earthers. Like, oh, they don't teach flat earth in class, and it should be teaching both sides. And why don't we? It's incredible. Young earth and flat earth, one is only marginally better than the other in terms of argumentation. As
Dapper Dinosaur says, young earth creationists are just flat earthers who are better at geography.
I love that. I love that. I haven't heard that, but that sounds like something Dapper would say. Yes, absolutely. It's
in terms of both the level of argumentation and the style of argumentation. They are, you substitute a few words on some of these slides and they can be flat earth slides. There's no real difference there. It's the same basic style, right down to the starting with a conspiracy theory and going from there.
Yes. Yeah. And even the same arguments sometimes, like science can't test what was in the past, or science can't test what it can't, this kind of stuff. Even the same exact arguments.
Which, by the way, if you all want to find a really entertaining flat earth debate, speaking of Dapper Dinosaur, he I think it was Dapper Dinosaur, I'm like 90% sure. He did one where he basically said, look, you're correct, but the South Pole is actually in the middle and not the North Pole. But your model is wrong. It's the South Pole in the middle, not the North Pole. Prove me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Prove me wrong that it's inside out from what you're saying. Prove me wrong. And it was a really, that was Dapper. Thank you, chat. And that's such a beautiful illustration because it shows the degree to which there's nothing that's ever going to convince them otherwise, right? There's nothing you can say
Yep.
They're going to be able, oh, it's definitely the North Pole. Like you started out at the beginning saying there's never the attempt to defend creationism, right? And we saw that here. This is all evolution can't do this, evolution can't do that. Therefore, false dichotomy. We have to go with creationism. Right. And flat Earth very much does the same thing. Oh, we can't explain this planetary motion, this observation, whatever. Why can I see the skyline of Chicago when I'm this far out in Lake Michigan, right? There's no attempt to justify their model or make any kind of coherent argument or coherent description of reality. It's just, you're wrong, therefore I'm right.
Right. And one of the most famous flat earthers I've debated is Austin Whitsitt, and he had the temerity. He was doing this video where he said, "Oh, science doesn't have any specificity," and I almost spat out my coffee, because they will hesitate to define, you know, how far the sun is, or where the moon is, or, you know, how anything works on their model. I'll use that term loosely, model. But you know, they will not actually say anything about it, and really just attack the standard science. And young Earth creationists are the same. They won't say how it was done. It was just God did it. You know, that's a lack of specificity to the mechanisms actually doing it. They will just attack the evolutionary mechanisms, not understanding them. And, you know, like a flat earther doesn't understand exactly what it means, doesn't understand exactly how it works. They'll just attack them without actually saying, well, this is how God did it. This is how we know God did it. It's just God did it. That's all they specify.
Yeah. And so I have a couple thoughts on this. One is that this is like the fundamental thing. If you are arguing with creationists, you need to be prepared for this style of attack. Right? You need to be prepared for this specific style of argumentation, where the whole point of it is to keep you, the defender of science, on your back foot. And as Mark said at the beginning, part of the beautiful thing about this debate is the opportunity to say, if this specific topic is the opportunity to say, you need to defend your model affirmatively. Like, you need to show that yours actually works, which will never happen because they don't have a coherent model to defend. And that's true whether you're talking about young Earth creationism or flat Earth or whatever, right? Or anti-vax, for example, right? There's no alternative theory of how disease and immunity works. It's just, you're wrong. Here's a bunch of misinformation that I'm going to throw a smokescreen, right? It's the same basic style. So if you're going to try to push back against this stuff, you need to be prepared for that approach and call it out, recognize it, you know, and turn the table and say, like, no, you got to defend your thing. You're making an affirmative case here. You need to actually provide evidence in the form of confirmed predictions, a coherent model, right? You need to actually do that work that you're demanding of me, right?
Especially when it is something that science basically is being tentative of, because science is tentative. It makes very, very tentative kind of statements on things. It's only when we're 100% sure, or you know, 99% sure, that we sort of make these, this is how it was done. So things like abiogenesis, for instance, you know, we're not saying we know how life came about, but they are. Right? They're making the claim there, and we're not. We're saying, hey, there's all of these hypotheses. It could be one of them. They're saying we know. So in instances like that, or the origin of the universe, right? Like, we don't say, hey, we know how the universe formed. We don't. We know up to the Big Bang, and that's about it. And we know a lot, but, you know, the onus is on them to show how their God did it. So because they're the ones saying, well, we know. We're not. But no one in abiogenesis is saying we know exactly how it was done. We've got a few of the steps. We've got a lot of the steps, but we don't know exactly how it happened. So it's important to remember that they're making the knowledge claim a lot of the time when it comes to these things. And so pushing back on them, it has to happen, because we're not saying we know. They're saying they do.
I want to point out a couple of chats here. People are making excellent points in the chat that I want to just make sure everybody sees. But also, Mark, we've been going for about an hour 45 here. So what I want to do is get to the end of Brian's opening, which, if you recall, folks, was 12 minutes long.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And we have been going for almost 2 hours. And the reason I point that out is what we fondly refer to as the bullshit asymmetry principle, right? This is why what we're doing here tonight is an illustration of why this is a creationist tactic and an anti-science tactic.
Brandolini.
Yeah,
Brandolini's law. Yeah.
Brandolini's principle.
Brandolini? Yeah,
I think that's right. I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's right. But I just call it the bullshit asymmetry principle. And this is this is an excellent illustration of it. We've got 12 minutes of nonsense, and it takes over an hour and a half to go through and contextualize and break down the different problems. So I want everybody to make sure that you're seeing exactly how and why creationists use the tactics that they do. And Chad is confirming it is Brandolini's law, the BS asymmetry principle here. So I just want to point out Fits of Rage, which great name, which is why if I were ever to debate on a scientific topic, it must be a very specific topic. And those are the rules that I follow too. Anytime I'm doing this, it's going to be a very specific topic. It's not going to be, evolution or creationism. It's going to be, I don't know, genetic entropy or, whatever it is, new information, right? It's going to be something very specific. Totally agree.
I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it's fine. I like debating topics, and I don't mind a loose one. But I like throwing curveballs if that's the case. Like if it is something loose, throw in the heat problem or something. Something that really absolutely destroys it. Throw in ERVs or something that they just cannot answer, and which is fantastic. But you're right; it is a double-edged sword. It really is.
Yeah, I'd like to keep it real super now. Like if I'm going to do, let's say evolution versus creation, no. But I'm happy to talk about endogenous retroviruses, right?
Right.
Let's do an hour just on that, right? And really dig into it. We got Maya Atkinson here. Shout out to Maya. Everyone should subscribe to Maya's channel for Bad Science Sunday. It's the nuh-uh theory of argumentation. That is exactly what it is. Yeah. And then, you've got me. But have you considered? Nuh-uh. Yeah, that's 100% what we're doing here. And then Bitcourse follows up with, "Allow me to introduce you to my book says so." Yeah, that's right. That's what we're doing. Again, no coherent model, no falsifiability in terms of the hypotheses. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. All right, let's see how Brian wraps this up here.
Getting up in the morning and talking to us from Australia. It's a pleasure to talk with you.
There we go.
Brian Lauer.
Okay, that was it. That was the end of his opening. That was the 12 minutes. Chat, did anybody get bingo? Because I wasn't keeping track, but there were at least 20 items on the bingo cards in that opening. So if you got bingo, let me know. I'll put it up on screen because
I don't think I got it. But yeah.
I didn't pull up a card and play along, but there were at least 20 that were in there, including a couple of those numbered slides with a whole list. Each one of them was a separate thing. So that was Brian Lauer's opening in this debate, which was about, again, remind me of the specific topic. It was what better explains reality, the past. What's a better lens to understand the past, evolution or creation?
Basically, evolution versus creationism. Which way is better to understand the past?
And there was no attempt to address that topic in there at all. It was just straight up, I'm going to use every anti-evolution argument that I can think of, and put that out there. Chris Decker, I got bingo and didn't even play.
And much props for the Clippy there. I want to point that out. Have you heard of that? The Clippy revolution?
No. What's the Clippy revolution?
Oh, it's a.
I know Clippy.
People... Right. It basically it's hauling back to the 90s where companies like Microsoft would introduce helpers just to try and help, and they weren't very good. But instead of Clippy wouldn't. Right, and they wouldn't try to take your data and sell it and stuff. So it's a protest to the AI sort of, data scraping and all the problems associated with AI. So people are changing their avatar to Clippy. I just found this out the other day. It was hilarious. But I want to point it out. Chris,
I like that a lot. That's excellent.
Clippy on.
We got Andrew coming here. Evolution is wrong, so I must be right. And Darren Simmons, the falsest of all possible false dichotomies. Pretty much. There you go.
Yeah, it'd be harder to get a more false one. Yeah.
You're just the general form of you're wrong, therefore I'm right. It's like that's not how reality works. Turns out
Yep.
things are complex, and there's more options than that.
Uh-huh.
So I want to just remind everybody that the entire debate, we just went through 12 minutes of it. The entire debate from Mark's channel is linked down below. And also, I do want to point out that this is the thing now with when you debate on Standing for Truth, people are now dual streaming to their own channels, which is, I think, an excellent development. And I want to encourage anybody in the future who is invited to participate in a debate on Standing for Truth to make sure that you are able to dual stream at the time of the debate to your own channel. So, and I think it's great that everybody has that option now. And I will say during this debate, as I was popping in, I was watching on Mark's channel, and every now and then I just had to pop over to Donnie's channel just to razz at them because Brian had said something particularly dumb.
Egregious.
And I just had to just point out that, like, really, you all take this seriously? Like, really? Come on.
Well, I did ask permission first. I consider myself to be a professional, so I do, say, he can put this up, or can I do this with, because really I think that's fair enough. But Donnie seems really open to it, so all good.
And everybody should do it. I think it's so. We were talking before we came on air. We were talking a bit about like debate platforms and modern day debate, for example. And funny story about them. My refusal to appear on MDD actually predates their Nazi hosting, because now they're the Nazi bar. But even before that, what I did one time is I had the nerve to say to James, "Hey, if I'm going to come on for a debate, which you're inviting me to come on, I should get some of the revenue from that debate, right? Because I'm doing the labor and you're getting the money." And he was like, "Yeah, no." I was like, "Well, all right, then find somebody else." And
fair enough.
And then like 2 months later, it was the Nazi bar, and that was that anyway. But it's you. People should get paid for their labor, either directly or indirectly. And one way to get indirectly paid is if you are doing a debate, you can dual stream it on your channel. So you should always request that of the initiator of the debate, is what I'm saying, folks.
Yeah.
Break the chains is what I'm saying. Mark, do you have any closing thoughts on the opening statement of this debate?
On the opening, I think this was actually like, you might go. So I when I started debating, I found this incredibly frustrating, right? It is all just standard talking points and all. It's just terrible, right? Like it is actually horrible. But I had sort of what's called a paradigm shift, like a switch in my thinking, that when they're doing something that is so bad, that's actually good for your side, right? Like you shouldn't, like, I think
never interrupt your opponent when they're making a mistake, right?
Right. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Don't stop your opponent from making a mistake, kind of thing. So I kind of had a paradigm shift, and I'm kind of like, no, this is good for me that he's being so predictable. All the answers are there. I later on, he mentioned the Lost Squadron. I love that question. It is the most easy home run out of the, and it is so like easy. You feel this frustration, like, how can you put this out and then go, well, that's good for our side. Like, if you want to be that bad, have at it.
Be my guest. If you want to make these awful arguments, you are welcome to it. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And I totally get the frustration. I totally understand that. But at the same time, when I'm going into a debate, it is the lowest sort of, this kind of stuff. I have to trust that the audience can see that this is sort of pseudoscience mixed with debate bro kind of philosophy, semi-philosophy, and sort of, you can point that out, and it actually works because you can say, hey, where's your falsification criteria? Where is it? I want it. Give it to me. It's good for you.
There's a really famous debate you can find on YouTube that basically follows that form, where it's William Dembski and Ken Miller. And one of the linchpin moments of the debate is Ken Miller basically saying, hey, look, I want to do an experiment. I want to do an experiment on intelligent design. Mm-hmm. What should I do? Right. How would I, I'm going to get some cells together, and we're going to see what happens, and we're going to see if any new traits evolve. And how do I know which traits evolved versus which traits were designed? You tell me. You intelligent design guy. who came up with one of the design criteria, right? He's the specified
Right.
complexity guy.
Yeah.
You tell me how to design my experiment so I can detect design. And it was like this 10-minute thing of like, but just tell me how to do it. What observations would be consistent with your perspective and what observations would be inconsistent with it? Like what's in and
Right.
what's out. And he couldn't do it. And it was so illuminating, right? To see the inability to answer that question. And you're exactly right. When you have somebody who's making these are basically just repeating headlines from, Discovery Institute and Answers in Genesis. When you've got somebody doing that, you scratch just one or two layers below the surface and there's nothing there. And you could ask these very basic questions, which you did, and people should watch the rest of it and see exactly what you did to expose that. I think it was a good job.
Thank you. I had a ton of fun. And to give the guy enough rope, that's the thing. And we even covered lunar bukkake, the idea that craters on the moon were formed by it was madness. It was so good. I had a ton of fun.
There was, if I recall, there was a part about like how he even went into like, if you're an evolutionist, how could you have any morals? Like, why is it wrong to cheat people? It's like, well, because people are people and ethics exist outside of the existence of a supernatural set of rules. Like, I don't know why that's a thing. Like, why is that so hard to believe? That, but if anybody had, you just want to sin on your bingo card, that's in there. That's in the debate. It's later on, but it's in there. It was, God. Anyway, something that people often say to me in these situations, they admire my patience. And I just want to say, I admire your patience in this debate, because that was, it was an impressive display, because there were moments when I would have been like, okay, stop. Like, that's enough of that. Just stop.
Right. And so my background again, I doing IT, you've got to have incredible patience, and especially I ended up in doing sort of high level complaints kind of thing. So the patience it's something I'm sort of trained in, and those skills have crossed over to debate somehow by some weird like sort of cascading effect. So it's not that I'm just this amazing person. It's just I've been trained in conflict resolution and customer control and sort of conversation control kind of thing for my job. That's all. I'm not special. I just have a certain skill set. That's all. Like, that's it. I'm not special. Trust me.
You're a man with a particular set of skills, as one might say.
Right.
Exactly. And it's useful.
And so, yeah.
Debating creationists.
Well, I mean, we see people come in from outside. I don't know if you're familiar with Mr. Anderson, who's a lawyer. And he's got these set of skills that I just go, wow, this guy is amazing. And
he's
they're
really
just
good
transferable.
At it,
Right. So, and this is the strength of our community. We have a variety of people with different specializations, different skills, different knowledge. And I was saying, like, as far as evolution is concerned, like humans, one of them, our major benefits, our major abilities is something that people don't think about, and that's socio-technical ability, the ability to be able to transfer skills from one person to another. That's where humans are incredibly excellent. And, let's use it. Let's do it. Why not?
I could not agree more with that. I think that's a great place to end it. I just want to say, specifically with Mr. Anderson, Mr. Anderson, if you see this, I have an email from you. I've just been really busy. I'll get to it. I promise you.
Yeah.
But I've directly benefited from collaborating with him. And some of his like debate technique breakdown stuff. I used them against creationists that led to Casey Luskin screwing up and leading to months of damage control. Like the stuff actually works. And it needs to be collaborative though. And all of these different people with different skill sets and expertises collaborating and working together to push back on all of this, which I just want to remind everybody, the creationism is a sideshow. The actual thing is Christian nationalism. That's what this is all about. The arguments don't have to be good because the science doesn't matter. It's not about science, right? It's about controlling the culture and enforcing their desired cultural norms on the rest of us. That's what's actually going on here. And for all this stuff about like how cordial people are, that's what Donnie wants. That's the kind of society that he wants too, right? It's all in the same cultural thing. Ken Ham and that cult leader dude from Idaho and Kent down in Alabama. They're all trying to accomplish the same thing, which is not revolutionize science education. It's take over the culture and impose a Christian theocracy on the rest of us, a fundamentalist Christian theocracy, where only like land-owning males, right, have the right to vote, for example. I don't know if you have to be land-owning or maybe married males or whatever, right? It's not everybody. It's like a very specific subset of people, you know, who have met certain criteria, have the right to vote, and nobody else does, right? It's a society dominated by a minority imposing their the reactionary cultural norms on everybody else. That's the end game here. And that's why I think it's so important, you know, put aside the winning the debates and the science and everything, but that's why it's important for all of us to be collaborating and pushing back in a coordinated way, because that's what we're actually pushing back against. It's not people being wrong on the internet like the XKCD comic. It's like Christian nationalists who want to impose a theocracy. And that's a big problem. There's a big problem.
Well, I will say this, though. They think that they can, you know, if they get it into schools and teach the children, then they will be able to shape people into this sort of Christian ideal kind of thing. And that isn't working. And the reason why it's not working is because science and the current education paradigm, it doesn't tell people what to think. It tells them how to critically analyze the world around them in a way that's understandable. So this is why people are flocking away from churches. Like, they're really on the losing side, and they think if they just grip everything tighter, they're going to do better. And that's actually the opposite way around. They're actually losing out in a big way, because science doesn't actually go, this is what the truth is. It says, this is how we found out what the world around us and how it is like. This is what we did. And you can do that too. You can be a scientist, you can discover things, you can do all of this. And just basically putting religious indoctrination isn't going to substitute for that, because people will get older and go, well, this isn't true. And and they leave.
Absolutely. And the analogy that I've heard for all of this is, if you just look at like the age demographics and everything and the rate of religiosity according to age, like this is it. This is the last shot they have, right? You look at Gen Z is just not religious enough for, you know, in 10 years, like you can't do any of this stuff. There just aren't enough religious people as a fraction of the population to make it happen. So the analogy that I've heard from this that I really like is, this is like in the monster movie, this is the hand coming back over the cliff, right? It's that last attempt to like grab onto the culture and hold it before you fall off the cliff. And if they don't do it right now, that's it. But man, they're really making a go at it right now. And
absolutely.
That's what we're all up against. You know, everyone, I think everybody on the Christian nationalist side realizes the existential threat that they're facing, kind of the demographic cliff, if you will, that they're facing. And I'm hopeful that the side pushing back on that starts to realize the stakes as well, right?
Yeah.
They recognize the seriousness and they're playing for keeps. And I would like for our side to recognize that that's what we're doing. And, you know, it's all fun and games on the internet, but it's also deadly serious. So we need to recognize that.
Right.
And this collaborative approach is one way we can do that, because by expanding this community, we can get more people, right? I mean, it really is community building, and it's just our community has to be bigger than their community. And that's what we're trying to do.
Well, and it's also this whole idea that without Christian culture, the entire world falls apart, kind of thing. Your country will fall apart. Australia, just a few years back, now it's 40%, I think 43% Christian. Like, this was something that came up in the debate. We don't have a Christian country anymore, and it hasn't fallen apart. It's actually
turns out you're doing fine.
Yeah, doing fine. Like, absolutely fine. It's not a big deal. Christians haven't been persecuted over here. No one's attacking them. No one's doing things to them. It just is this whole thing of, you need us. We don't. 100% don't.
It's fine. Culture is fine. Yeah. Turns out humanity is actually okay without that specific influence. Yeah. Mark, this has been a ton of fun, and I wish we'd gotten through more of the debate, but that's okay.
Absolutely fine. I've had a blast, and it's important to really analyze. This is why I do something called debate dissection, where me and my friend Ember, I go to her channel, she comes to mine, and we sort of alternate weekly analyzing debates. We're doing a Gutsit Gibbon against Bergman at the moment, and it is so much
classic.
Look, we've only done the openings, and she absolutely slaughtered him, and it was weird because his opening was after hers, and I feel like he changed things based upon, like, she already knew where he was going. It was just a textbook, being prepared and knowing what you're talking about. It's just beautiful. So we're doing that, and that's why I love doing debate reviews, because you actually get to sit back and analyze. Don't get me wrong, I love debating, but to sit back and analyze it and pick up on stuff. Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. So I've enjoyed everything. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I love doing it. So I really want to thank you.
You are very welcome. And folks, just want to note that Ember's channel is linked in the chat right now. You should click on that and subscribe.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah,
Mark, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I also love doing the deep dive into this, taking 2 hours to dissect 12 minutes of debate. I'm in.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm in. So thanks a ton for doing this. I love your insight. I love the perspective you bring to this. And I didn't know that about your IT background, but that is so great. I love how those skills transfer over. I just love that. That's awesome. Folks, please remember that Mark is linked in the description. You should go subscribe to him right now. If you are not subscribed to him for some reason, you should go do that right now for more stuff like this and other really excellent content.
I'm a sliver away from 2.5K. So if you get me to 2.5K, I will do a special. I'll do a celebration, and
do it.
We can.
I can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so close.
Folks, you heard him. He made the promise. If he hits 2.5K,
I did, yeah.
Getting a 2.5K show, let's make Mark do a 2.5K show.
Bully me into it. Yeah.
Do you have anything coming up that you want to direct people towards?
No, not really. I do a Thursday night Eastern time show called Fundamentalist Fails, where I go through people like Frank Turek and William Lane Craig and Ray Comfort and these real, usually I usually focus a bit more on philosophy kind of thing, and the sort of, Frank Turek, theological argument, cosmological, that kind of thing, because they're so fun to pick apart. But I do that. I do something called Aimbot, Am I Morally Bankrupt or Them? Which is kind of, we go onto Reddit, Am I the Arsehole? And I kind of apply secular humanism as a moral structure. It was hilarious when Brian brought up morality, because that's one of my real interests. So I was like, yeah, morality. Yeah, let's discuss morality. So it's silly. It's like challenging Darth Vader with a lightsaber. It just is not going to end well.
No, that's there's this great subreddit. I forget the exact name, Tripping Through Time or Tripping Through the Ages or something like that. It's like historical pictures with, meme text on them. And one of them that I love, it's the name of the thread was Bout to Wreck You. And it was this old dude, like in a monastery, sharpening a quill. And the caption was, when someone starts an argument with me about something I know a lot about. It's just like, let's do this. Let's do that topic specific.
Yeah, that keyboard kind of, okay.
Yep. I love those moments. I love those moments so much. Folks, I don't have specific dates for things, but I do have several things coming up. I will be doing a video, long awaited. I know people have been clamoring for this one. I finally got it just about ready to record on Winston Ewart's dependency graph stuff. I don't know if that's going to be next week or the week after or early September. It's going to be soon. I also have a wrap-up, what I expect to be a wrap-up on the Rob Stadler phylogenetics saga, and then we'll do kind of a retrospective on that. So I've got a couple things coming there. And with the Rob Stadler stuff, I'm having a difficult time understanding his argument because he communicates in short YouTube comments instead of like talking to me. So it's hard to pin him down on anything. But I'll have a wrap up on that saga coming soon. I'm also we're up to, I think it's it's the third one I'm going to do, but I think it's talk number 5 in the Genesis Apologetics Conference is Christopher Roop talking about Lucy. Erica is going to be my guest for that one. And I don't have a date for that, but I'm really looking forward to that because Christopher Roop is wrong about everything, and I can't wait to hear about it. So those are things that I have coming up soon. Be on the lookout for those. I'm not sure of the order, but next month or so, you'll see some combination of those things. And with that, I think we can call it a night, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us through over 2 hours here. Mark, one more time, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Oh,
I
my
appreciate
pleasure.
it. It's always fun getting to spend time with you talking about this stuff. I'm sure we'll do more stuff down the road, especially if you hit 2.5.
Yeah, sure.
That'll be fun.
Mhm.
So, folks, go subscribe to Mark. Get him to 2.5K, and I'll see you right back here at 9 p.m. next week for, I don't know, something. I'll figure it out between now and then. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.